Donald Trump learns another hard lesson. He is not Vladimir Putin and cannot control America's courtrooms. On yesterday, Trump was slapped down by a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals when it came to his Muslim travel ban. In their order, they made it perfectly clear that his own language, his own words calling for a travel ban show that it was discriminatory against Muslims. The panel also made it clear the ban should not be reinstated, saying the government didn't make its case that there was a national security threat without the ban. According to the ruling, the government has not offered any evidence or even an explanation of how the national security concerns justify an urgent need. As I said earlier, Trump tweeted, "See you in court. The security of our nation is at stake." Shortly afterwards, he had this to say to reporters.
We'll see them in court. It's a political decision, and we're going to see them in court, and I look forward to doing it.
So you believe the judges made a political
We
decision?
have a situation where the security of our country is at stake, and it's a very, very serious situation. So we look forward, as I just said, to seeing them in court. But it's a decision that we'll win, in my opinion, very easily.
And are you any closer?
And by the way, we won that decision in Boston.
The ruling means, folks, that folks from 7 largely mostly Muslim countries listed in Trump's executive order can continue to travel to the United States. The Attorney General for Washington State, he of course challenged Trump's executive order, said the ruling, very simple, that Trump, with that ruling, that Trump is not above the law.
We are a nation of laws. And as I have said, as we have said, from day one, that those laws apply to everybody in our country. And that includes the President of the United States. When an executive order is adopted like this, with little thought, little planning, little oversight, that creates chaos throughout our country, that has a real impact on people's lives.
Joining us in D.C. for our panel is A. Scott Bolden. He, of course, is a former chair, Democratic D.C. Party, also an attorney, partner of their law firm there in D.C. H. Sharif Williams, founding CEO for the Center for Cultural Sexuality and Spirituality, and also Pastor Shannon Wright, third vice chair of the Maryland Republican Party. Scott, I will start with you. First and foremost, this ruling here really strikes at the heart of Trump's belief that he was right. Numerous federal judges, including Bush appointees, have struck this ban down. Many critics say simply this was a poorly written executive order, that he did not take the time to run it through all the proper channels before it was executed.
Well, it's poor in execution, it's poor in drafting, but more importantly, it's a poor argument. This is a 3-0 defeat. If you read the opinion says you do not have unfettered discretion in putting forth an executive order. The Constitution lives here, and a Republican federal circuit court judge and 2 Democrats upheld the decision of the lower federal court. It's a slam dunk win. What's going to be interesting, Roland, is going to the Supreme Court where it's a 4-4 ideological breakdown of the judges, and if they review this, which we think justice is going to take to the Supreme Court, if they review it and they tie 4-4, then at least on a temporary basis, there will be no Muslim ban, and that's exactly what the government doesn't want to call it, but it is a ban on Muslims from those 7 countries.
Shannon, the court said they used Trump's own words against him. He kept saying, "Oh, not a Muslim travel ban," and they kept saying, "Wait a minute," but you kept saying what it was. You kept tweeting what it was. I mean, the government looked silly arguing this case because they were saying opposite of what the president said himself.
You know, when you look at these issues, my mind is not a legal mind. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and when I look at it, I understand the concept of wanting to make sure that the country is safe. I understand the concept of folks wanting to make sure that when they send their children off in the morning that they're assured that they're coming home. I get the concept. The execution was perhaps a tad bit flawed, but I get the concept of wanting to keep everybody safe.
But all right, Pastor?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sharif, go ahead. Sharif, go ahead.
Yeah, I listened to the oral arguments, and it sounded like the president's attorney was actually the one who was held hostage. It was a poor execution, just even in the oral arguments, and I think that's why the former interim AG decided not to represent the president in this case. So I think it was doomed from the beginning.
You know, Roland, one of the most powerful things about the opinion was that the Ninth Circuit said, you've got to give me a reason. You've got to show me where there's a threat from one of these 7 Muslim countries. And the president and his lawyers simply could not provide either a basis or an event that suggested that anyone traveling from these 7 countries was a threat of any kind to national security. That's going to be huge. And I've counted about 18 judges who have looked at this issue from various lawsuits filed across the country. Only one has ruled in the president's favor. And so the Supreme Court is going to be looking at that. The other thing to look for is at the Supreme Court level is they like to look at cases that are final, where there's a final decision. This is a temporary decision, and the Supreme Court actually could pass on looking at it, saying that we need more discovery to determine whether this temporary hold is going to be a permanent hold. Remember, this is a temporary restraining order, which means it's an emergency matter, but ultimately this case or these cases are going to go back to the federal district court level for trial. So be on the lookout for those next proceedings.
I think what's
we
even
have
more...
we have Lee Gwinnett with the ACLU on the phone. Lee, are you there?
I'm here.
Lee, first and foremost, the ACLU, of course, filed one of the first lawsuits on the weekend of this travel ban. And here you have the president still trying to defend it, even though he was slapped down by numerous federal judges. Look, I mean, this appeals court, look, it was 3-0. He's gotten beaten over and over and over again, hoping the Supreme Court will give him a reprieve, but it's a 4-4 tie right now. If Gorsuch is not confirmed soon, this goes to the Supreme Court. As Scott said, they could not touch it, and the lower court ruling will stand.
Right, well, that's absolutely right. You know, it's always hard to predict what the U.S. Supreme Court will do, and we're waiting to hear how the administration will play it. But that's absolutely right. They could stay out of it at this early stages. They could decide to look at it. I mean, this is an unusual situation, so generally they won't get involved at an early stage, but it's possible they will at this stage. And how it will play out, is anybody's guess. But I think what we've seen thus far are the lower court judges overwhelmingly rejecting the Trump administration executive order.
And Lee, we're also seeing, frankly, again, a horrible rollout. Even Republicans have criticized how this administration simply rammed this thing through, did not give it proper thought, and now they're having to defend it in court when, frankly, they shot themselves in the foot with their own lack of preparation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to criticize any of the lawyers. They're doing their best under difficult circumstances. I think part of it is that it's moving so quickly, but part of it is I just don't think that there is the type of evidence out there to support what the executive order does, which is, a flat-out ban, not just on the 7 countries, but on refugees from all over the world. There's just not that type of evidence to support such a sweeping measure. I mean, the 2 individuals in our case, they worked for the U.S. military, or their families worked for the U.S. military. So this is not a situation where people are flooding the country who we don't know who they are. These people have been extensively vetted. So to say that they are a national security risk is just wrong.
Lee, last question for you. Of course, the Trump administration plans to appeal. It goes to the Supreme Court. What's the ACLU's plan moving forward? We know many tech companies file legal briefs. Are we going to see the same strategy move forward where others weigh in before the court?
We will. The ACLU will continue to be involved in the Washington case as well as our own cases. We have 12 of our own cases around the country. I think we're going to see businesses, community groups, universities, national security experts, everyone weighing in because this is such an important issue, and people feel so strongly that the Muslim ban is unconstitutional.
All right, Lee, we surely appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much for joining us. Lee Gallant with the ACLU. Thanks a lot.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin, every weekday morning at 7 on TV 1.